And so what we're going to do is talk about COVID. And what's happening right now is that you're going to hear in the news that the BA.5 is moving around. And so if you look at what's happening in the world, the cases are actually going up now. And it's during summertime, which is concerning because normally it's in the winter time that we start seeing people getting together. So we're expecting a season of increases in the fall, but it looks like it's coming earlier. And so that becomes the problem that we see. So we can click off the security alert. Yeah, just cancel it, it'll be fine. Yeah. That's right. I'm sure my USB stick gave her some viruses or something. Okay, great. So I thought I'd share with you this one. I thought I'd start off here. That's the original virus, okay, it's the orange thing. And then this is the Delta virus, and this is now the Omicron virus. It looks a little different. So they all look the same, but there's some differences between them, and we're going to talk a little bit about those differences. I thought I'd start off with just one joke, okay? So this is Biden and talking to Obama. And so Biden says, "I've been trying to call you all day." And then, so he's showing his phone, and then Obama says, "Joe, that's your calculator." So there's a problem there. So we now know about our tools that we have. So we know about vaccines, we know about masks, we know about distancing, we have some medications, we have some intravenous kind of medications as well for COVID. So we do have a lot of more things that we can offer for patients. But still, the vaccine is the one that everybody is talking about. And you're going to hear news next week that they're going to open up fourth shots so that more people can qualify for it. And so let me just go through some of the rationale for that. So this is what's going to happen is that next week they're probably going to have more of the original shots. And many of you are going to think this is the same shot over and over again. Why are we doing this? So let me just go through some of the information. And this information, medical doctors would maybe not even know, but certainly it won't be in the media that you're going to see. I'm going to show you information that the scientists are looking at. So first of all, in London, what's happening over there? They're about 2 months ahead of us because they got rid of masks and everything much earlier. And so over there, just within 1 week, it's gone up 400,000 cases. And so they went from 2.3 million people to 2.7 million people just last week. So that means 2.7 million people can't go to work. So you can understand this becomes a problem of flights getting canceled, hospitals not working well, maybe the factory is not working well. So that's why we have to make sure that people don't get sick, and these are the headlines that are sitting there. And it's the Omicron BA.5 that's coming. So we heard about Omicron, that's what messed up Christmas time. And so that was the original Omicron. And since then we've had BA.1, BA.2, BA.3, 4, 5. So there's a family, that we're talking about. And I'm hoping, they use some contraception and stop the family. We can't have any more. So here's what's happening in Ontario with the sewage water. So instead of testing everybody, they just check the sewage. And so therefore we see a lot of virus now starting to head up again. So we're heading into more viruses. And this is concerning because it's summertime. And during summer, people are away, people are outside, we're not supposed to be sick. And so we were hoping for this thing to drag on this way until the fall. But as you can see, it's now starting up again. So therefore, we have to be careful. And in some places, they've just got rid of the masks in some provinces, and now the virus numbers are going up again. The big difference is the key, you heard about the antigen and all that kind of stuff, right? So basically the virus has these spike proteins, these things that stick out. And it happens that we have something on our cells that it could stick into. So there's a locking system on our cells. And if the key fits, we actually invite the virus in. And what's happened is that the key is changing. And so when the key changes, a couple of things can happen. One is that it could be a better set of keys. You know how you have an old key, like it doesn't work very well, you have to jiggle? But if the key fits better, it's easier to get in. So the BA.5 has a better set of keys that fits better. And then number two is that the key that we're also looking for antibodies, our antibodies are trying to grab this thing. The antibodies are a little less sticky to that one. And the way it works is that when things attract, in chemistry, it's positive, negative, they attract. So the spike protein has changed its electrical charge. And the way it does that is that each protein is made up of amino acids. Amino acids, there's different ones. And if you change one, it changes the shape and it changes the electrical charge. So let's say in one spot it was a positive charge, and now it's a negative charge. It's not going to stick the same. And so that's why these changes on the virus will now make it a better set of keys,
and at the same time, our antibodies may not be able to stick as well, okay? And so this is what BA.5 is, and that's why people are concerned. And so this fellow, you recognize this fellow very much, right? Like he only shows his face when he has to. I haven't seen him otherwise. He said no masks. He said no masks in hospital. Now thankfully the hospital said, no, we're gonna keep masks on. And so by removing masks, we now allow the virus to move back and forth much easier. And so here's what happens when you have a mask on. You know how people argue about, N95 or no N95? The purpose of the mask is to keep the virus near you. So Omicron likes to grow in your throat. That's its preferred place. And so it grows very fast in your throat. And so therefore, every time you breathe or laugh or talk, you're sending out viruses. So the purpose of the mask is to keep the virus near you. And so therefore, it's not out in the air, okay? The purpose of this guy's mask is to slow down his sucking power. So if he cannot suck in the virus, then it's easier for him to stay protected. So the mask actually helps on both sides. In the beginning, we got it wrong. We said the mask only protects other people. And so therefore people said, why do I need a mask if I don't have the virus? Well, you're wearing a mask so that it's harder for you to suck in the virus. And remember, fundamentally, it's very simple. I breathe out the virus and you have to suck it in. The virus can't fly. It can't move. So this virus cannot move at all. And so therefore, I have to blow it out, you have to suck it in. And so if we interrupt that, then you don't get sick, okay? It's not complicated. Now, if I were to take off this guy's mask, then basically all the virus is now free to go out into that airspace. Now, if he keeps his mask on, it's some protection, but we've told everybody to take off masks, so this guy's mask is off. And so now the virus is close enough that he can now suck it in to his system. And then once he sucks it in, then it will infect his airways and continue on in that fashion. Now what we need is his army to be strong. So we need his army to be there. So yes, the virus can get into your nose and set up some infection there, but as long as we stop it from going inside. And so that's why the vaccination is there to give you your army to stop it from coming in. The army can't stop it from coming into your nose, but it can stop it from going inside. So that means that we could stop it from making you very sick, like go to hospital, die, that kind of thing. And so if you look at our transit system, that became of concern because our doctor also said no mask inside TTC. So you can see in here, we're quite close. And so therefore, if we were to release the mask, then you would have viruses moving around. And then we would have to make sure that everybody's army is very strong. So they can still carry the virus back home, but at least they won't get very sick. And so that's why the more we release society, the more vaccination becomes important. Okay, and so that's why they're going to talk about vaccinations again. We're in Canada, so I know this is the Hakka community, but in Canada they understand hockey. So therefore I made a hockey picture. And so for hockey, there's distance, right, which keeps the puck away, right? And then you have mask, which is your defenseman, that gives you protection. And then you have your vaccine, that's like your goalie to protect you on the inside. So if we use all three layers, then we're gonna have good protection. However, we got rid of distance, right? We don't have to sit far apart. Some of you are sitting very close together. But it's okay if you have your defenseman, it's not bad. But then recently we just got rid of mask as well. So now you're down to just the goalie. And so therefore that's why the vaccine needs to be boosted, to make sure that it's working well. And then if we take away this, because some kids haven't had it yet, right? So therefore the kids, there's actually no protection at all. So that's why you're starting to see kids getting infected as well. So with no protection, then basically this is the result, okay? So it's not complicated, it's very simple kind of stuff. So with BA.5, we can't have this situation, right? So therefore we need to put back everybody, okay? For sure the vaccine, for sure the mask, and for sure some distance would be helpful as well. And it's because BA.5 is coming up very fast, that's why you're gonna hear this. No politician is ready to say mandate, right? Because they don't want to go back to those things. We don't have to go back to, staying at home and things like that. But we do need to put some distance and have the mask on, and that way we can be safe in the situation. Now, in terms of how does this virus get in there, is that in your nose, for example, you have some cells, those nose cells inside, and the virus really wants to take over your factory. So the virus has no factory, it needs your factory to make copies of itself. And so therefore in your nose cells you have factories that it could take over. And so therefore it can infect you, right? Even though you're vaccinated, because your army is sitting on the blood side, it's sitting inside. So therefore, this thing can still spread because your army is sitting on this side of the wall and the virus is sitting over here. So that's why you can get infected with the virus even though you've been vaccinated, but the virus can't go in because you have an army sitting on the border, okay? And if you look at the results of what we're seeing, if you look at the cases in Ontario, I'll just show you Ontario data, are vaccinated people getting sick with Omicron. And what you see here is in the orange line, it's not vaccinated people. In the blue line, it's vaccinated people. And as you can see with Omicron, everybody's getting infected, okay? Everybody's getting infected because you can pick up the virus here. But are the vaccinated people getting sick? Because if that's the case, then when we look at hospital, it should be the same, right? Like both groups should be the same. And what you see here is that for hospital, unvaccinated people end up in hospital, vaccinated people much less. And so that's why the vaccine is helping stopping the virus from coming in. What about intensive care unit? And you look at the intensive care unit people, the same thing. Unvaccinated people, more likely to go into the intensive care. Vaccinated people, less likely. Okay? So that's why the vaccine is still working. It can't stop this, but it can stop the ones coming into your body. Make sense? Now, who is the one that's going to get sick? Because you see the government always says vulnerable people, vulnerable. Like, where did they come up with that? It's from the original studies in British Columbia and around the world. They said, who's going into hospital? And so they looked at age. Remember, the old people were getting hit very hard. So they said it's something to do with age. It's something to do with diseases that you have. So if you have cancer and diabetes and heart attack and lung problem, you're not going to do well. But if you're healthy, you're going to do better. So it's something about the number of diseases that you have. And then of course, also something about the number of dosages of the vaccine that you got, right? Because that's the protection side. So if you look at this, a woman with no vaccine, okay, that was in the beginning when we didn't have shots. This is the percentage of those people that end up in hospital. Okay, so if you look at this one, if you have three conditions, three medical conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, something like that. If you're over the age of 80, let's say, then your chance of ending up in hospital is 72%. Okay? So if you look at groups of people like that, very high chance of going into hospital. If you get 3 shots, okay, 3 vaccinations, then that person now goes down to about 9% risk of going into hospital. So one is 70-something%, one is 9%. And so that's why the government said we need to protect these people. If you look at men, it's the same thing, but a little higher, 83% if no vaccination will go there. Whereas if you have 3 shots, then it goes down to 12%. It's not 0, but it's a lot better than 80%. And so that's why they said vulnerable people need to have their shots and so on and so forth. And if you look at the stuff in between, as you can see, 1 shot, 2 shots, the risk goes down. So each time you get a shot, it goes down. It goes 70%, 30%, 20%, 9%. And so that's why they've been pushing, these extra shots for everybody along the way. So this is what they said. Age is important, the number of diseases that you have is important, and the number of shots that you have is important. Those are the 3 things that we should be thinking about. If you look at the world, are we doing good in the world, is that this is the world death rates. And you can see here, initially, when it first began, the death rate was 20 times that of the flu. Okay, so if the flu killed 1 person, this thing would kill 20 people. And what you can see now, with vaccines and everything else, you can see that now we're down to the same rate as flu death rates. So if flu would kill 1 person, then COVID is killing 1 person because the vaccine is working. Okay, so we brought it from very high risk of dying down to similar to that of flu. Now, in terms of how come you need more shots, so Delta, we said that you just need 2 shots. So when Delta was around, we said 2 shots, you're good. When Omicron came, we said you need 3 shots in order to help protect you. So why did that come like that? If you look at this one, this is data from the UK. So England has been very good tracking these things. And so these are people that had 2 shots. So if they had 2 shots, what's their chance of getting infection? Not going into hospital, but just getting infection, like having it in their nose. And so this is 25 weeks, okay? So this is over time. And what you can see here is for the two different viruses, for Delta, this is Delta, okay, the original Delta, you can see that it does drop. So your protection drops over time. And then this is Omicron. Omicron, this one is dropping as well. Okay, but you can see that Omicron, the protection is less. It's not so good. So the vaccines don't give us those nice antibodies to grab a hold of Omicron. Then they said, what happens if I give you number 3 shot? So this is number 3 shot. And you can see that for these people, we can push you up here. And then now you're pretty close to about 100% protection, okay, from getting the infection. With Omicron, we can take you from about 20% protection and push you up to about 60%. So you're getting that boost going up, but over time, it's going to come down as well. So that's why with Omicron, they said we need the 3rd shot to get you back up there. And as time goes on, we're going to probably need another booster as well. And that's the reason why for it. And this is for Pfizer. And some of you might be saying, what about Moderna? So Moderna, they did the same thing with the booster. And you can see that the Delta ones are being protected better. And then the Omicron is also getting boosted up, but it also comes down. So therefore, that 3rd shot will give you better protection, but over time, it's going to come down again as well. Somebody asked me this. They said, if the viruses change, right, Omicron is different, how come we're using the same shot? And the reason is because we might get some benefit. So let me share with you this one, because a lot of people say, I don't want the same shot, because what's the point? And let me just share with you some information around that. So let's say this is the spike protein, that thing, the key and all that kind of stuff. This is the thing that the antibody is trying to grab on the virus. So let's say this is the original and it looks like this. And so when I give you a shot, your body will recognize this thing and build an antibody against it. So it builds something that can grab onto it. And that's a perfect fit, okay? Now let's say Delta came along, and this thing looks a little different now, right? It's not quite the same right here. It looks a little bit different. And so let's say the antibody that you made from before is still enough, like it grabs it enough. It's not as good as a fit here, but it's not bad. So therefore, those antibodies will still work. Now let's say we see Omicron, and it looks round. It looks different. And so now those antibodies that you made from that 1st shot, it doesn't fit well. And so it's not going to be able to grab it. So this one won't work anymore. So therefore, this shot cannot make antibodies against the Omicron. That's what we thought. But if you look at this big huge thing, right, some of it is the same, like this part is the same. So therefore, your body is also making antibodies against this part, let's say. So this one will be a good fit there. And that same antibody is a good fit here, so it'll work. And that antibody is also a good fit here, and so that'll work. So even though this has changed, other parts have not changed. And so therefore, the original shot can still give you some protection against that. And every time I give you a shot, I give your body another chance to make antibodies. So every time we give you a shot, your body makes antibodies. So you'll make some that don't work, and then you'll make some that go after this part that does work. So that's why even when we give you the original shot from the very first time, and we give you a 4th shot of that, you'll still make more antibodies that may be still useful against Omicron, okay? Now, this is a crazy study, okay? Like, most doctors don't know this stuff. I'm gonna show you some crazy stuff. So this was December 2020. So this was right around the time when we started to see new variants and the shots were just coming out. So they had taken blood on these people that had vaccines in the study. So they kept their blood. And they wanted to know what kind of antibodies are they making. So they took those blood, 20 people, and they measured the types of antibodies that they were making. So they know which type of antibodies that they're making. Not everybody made all of them. Some people made 4 of them, 5 of them, something like that. And then what they did was they took all those changes. You know, you hear about those mutations, right, of the spike protein. So they had all of these changes on that spike protein, and then they checked their blood, whether they have antibodies that can grab on to those changes. And they measure it by something called IC50, okay? And this is the numbers that they came up with. Let me explain why that is important. So this is one of those changes in the spike protein. And what this means is that they're gonna put that person's blood on there, that antibody, and to block 50% of it, this is how much you need. To block 90% of it, this is how much you need. If you see something that says over 1,000, okay, sorry, If you see something that says over 1,000, it means it's not working. Like I could put as much antibody on there, but it can't grab it. So anything that says over 1,000, that antibody is no good anymore. So what I did was on that big huge table, I put all the ones in red that is over 1,000. So it doesn't work anymore. Those antibodies don't work anymore, okay? So here's what it looks like. So this is the original virus. That's the original one in the shots. That's the original virus that we saw. So if you take the original virus and make a vaccine, then it works perfect against it. You see, all the numbers are low. So I don't need very many antibodies and I can get rid of that virus. So if I make the vaccine based on that virus, it works very well. Okay. Now what about all these other ones? You heard about these changes of the virus. This one was the alpha. Remember you heard from Britain, there was one, very first one. And so this one, these ones don't work against it anymore. Those antibodies don't work anymore. This one is the Delta version, and you can see that these things don't work anymore against this one. This one is the one from California, and you can see these ones don't work anymore. So you can see as the virus is changing, the antibodies that we're making, some of them are not going to stick anymore to them. Now, the virus is smart, it keeps picking up changes. So what happens if I put this one over here, then all of these things now can come across to this guy. And so therefore, more things are not working with this particular virus. If I take the California and stick that change on there as well, we now have even more of those things not working anymore. So basically now, the original virus, everything worked that your body made, whereas now, pretty much nothing that you make is working. So that's why we worry about this virus changing, because it's going easier to infect us and we can't stop it. Now there is some hope. This one little box here, okay? This one little box, what does it say? 23 and 78, that's very low, right? So that antibody is good, right? Because I don't need to put much of it on there. And if you look at this column over here, you'll see that it's low across all of them. You see that? No thousands, right? It works very well across all of them. So remember what I said, that if it goes after the common part, then it can go after many viruses. So that means that these people from the original shot had made an antibody that is good against every one of these things going across. And if you look up here, this is the same, no red boxes. And this one, no red boxes. So that's why even though we give you the same shot that's not Omicron specific, you are still able to make antibodies that could go against it. And that's why the original shot may still be useful while we're waiting for other shots to come for us. So now they're saying Omicron, you should have 4 shots. And that's the reason why, because I give you another chance to make antibodies again, and some of those antibodies will be good against all of the versions that we're seeing. Now, how much antibodies do you make? You're asking me these questions. I'm thinking. So this is looking at the different types of viruses 5 months after 3 dosages, 3 shots. So how much would I make with a 4th shot? So I'm going to forget about these two. Let's just look at Omicron. That's the only one everybody's concerned about. So after 3 shots and 5 months, you can see that the antibody levels is 12 units. Okay, whatever this 12 units is. So if I give you a 4th shot, can I make more? And so this is the 4th shot. So 1 week after your 4th shot, just 1 week after your 4th shot, you see the number now here, instead of 12, it's now 107, okay? And if 2 weeks after the 4th shot, that number now goes to 136. So that means 2 weeks after the 4th shot, you've now got 10 times more antibody than you had before the 4th shot. And that's why the governments may start saying maybe we need the 4th shot if this Omicron is coming. And these are Omicron-specific antibodies that we're talking about, okay? And that's why they're pushing for the same shot that we've had all this time. Now, you're probably saying, but we must change the shot at some point, and that's coming. And so this is data from the Moderna people. So anytime you see mRNA, that's going to be Moderna people. So this is the original shot, the original virus spike protein, and this one is the Omicron one. So they do decimals, I don't know. So if you see the decimals, it means that's an original virus and also Omicron together in the same shot. So therefore, your body will get to recognize both of them. All right? Does it work? Does it work? So This is the amount of Omicron antibodies, the good Omicron antibodies, okay? And you can see it's 100, 1,000, 10,000. And so they gave the original shot. This is the original shot, same shot that you and I have been getting. And if I give you the original shot, you can see before the shot and then after the shot, you make more, right? You make more Omicron antibodies as well. So in other words, getting the same shot, you're gonna make more. How about if I give you one that has Omicron in it, then you make even more, okay? So you see here it's 1,900, this one is 3,000 units. So therefore, by having the Omicron mixed in there, we actually give you more antibodies against Omicron. So this is everybody. What about people that have never seen the virus versus people that have seen the virus? So this is people that have never seen the virus, they've never been infected, and you can see that yes, this number is bigger than this number, so the combination is going to give you more antibodies. What about people that had the infection? Because I have a lot of patients that I was infected, I don't need a shot anymore. Can we boost them up? And here are the people that are, right here, are the seropositive, which means they had the virus already, and then you give them a shot afterwards. And you can see that first, their antibodies before the shot is much higher than everybody. So if you get infected, your body will make antibodies. But if we give you a shot, it goes up even more. So you'll see that the people with the double shot is 7,000, which is higher than everybody in the system. So if you had an infection, then we give you another shot, then we're gonna send your antibodies much higher, and so hopefully you'll be protected. I don't want you to go and get Omicron, okay? I don't want you to have an Omicron party, you know, and say, oh, I should get the virus and then I'll get more. No, no, because then you have to go through war. And with Ukraine, we see war is no good. So in your body, as soon as you get the virus, you have to fight the war. If you don't fight the war, you die. So you have to fight the war to stay alive. And so that's not good for your body. So please don't get the virus in order to get the antibodies. Use the shots for training. So the vaccine will train your immune system. That's a good way of training, not training through war. Okay, so we don't want to go through war. All right, so let's continue on. Oh, this is long COVID, right? You heard about long COVID, no energy and stuff like that. That's what I feel like this morning, actually, when Karen called me, you have to come now. So the idea is that long COVID, initially it was people being tired, not you know, sort of headache, foggy kind of stuff. We now know that there are other problems with after COVID, which is heart disease. So when they looked at the US veterans, the war veterans in the US, they have a good database on them. The people that had COVID versus no COVID, they are all increased risk of heart attack, strokes, blood clots, and heart problems like rhythm problems, like atrial fibrillation. So now what we're doing at our clinic is we're saying, did you have COVID? You know, that's important information for me, because if you had COVID, then you're at higher risk for all these diseases in the future. And so therefore, if you've had COVID or you know somebody that has COVID, make sure every visit when you see your doctor, I had COVID, and that'll just make us think more about these other weird diseases that you might be getting. In terms of long COVID, does vaccination help? Somebody asked me that. So if I get vaccinated and then I get sick, am I going to get long COVID? And so they looked at this and they said this is the, you know, where it's the same. So anything on this side means it's increasing your chance of long COVID. Anything on this side means that it's decreasing long COVID. And when they look at the mRNA vaccines, the Moderna, the Pfizer vaccines, you can see that there's about a 50% reduction. So it's about half of the number of people getting long COVID. With the AstraZeneca vaccine, okay, which we don't have here in Canada now anymore, it's about 25%. So if you look at this one, this is a little bit better than this one in terms of the reduction. So if you get vaccinated, then your chance of getting long COVID, if you get infected, is about half. And so therefore there might be some benefits there. The other thing that people ask me, if I'm vaccinated, can I still pass it to people? The answer is yes. If you get infected, you will generate virus and you could pass it to people, but you're going to be less likely to pass it. So if you look at this one, this is a very interesting study. So they had all these people vaccinated, non-vaccinated, like some of them only had one shot, and they checked them. They checked their nose and everything else, and then they tried to grow the virus, okay? And so this is what they said, is that these people, all of them, whether you're vaccinated fully, partially vaccinated, unvaccinated, everybody grows the virus in their nose. And everybody clears the virus out in about 10 days, okay? So you need about 10 days to get rid of it, 10 to 14 days to get rid of it. So therefore we have to be careful around, elders and stuff like that if you have infection. But what's interesting is that if you're fully vaccinated, is the virus growing, okay? So what they did was they culture it. So it's not just enough to see the virus, they want to see does it grow. So they actually take the sample and then put it in some stuff to see if it grows. And then they try and see whether it grows or not grows. And this is what you see, is that only a little bit of it is growing. In other words, I can see the virus, I know you're making virus, but it's not very active, okay? And so therefore, when they looked at the partially vaccinated, what happened there? You see more of these orange dots, which means that partially shots, okay, they're growing the virus, and those virus can grow if it goes into you. Now what about unvaccinated people? Unvaccinated people, tons of virus that can grow. So therefore, if you get vaccinated and then you get infected, you're less likely to pass the virus to somebody else. I still want you to isolate, okay, don't get me wrong, I don't want you hugging everybody and kissing people. I still want you to be safe, but then there's at least a little bit of benefit, right, that I'm not gonna pass it as fast as unvaccinated people as well. So that's another reason why to get vaccinated. If you live amongst your elders, for example, then you don't want to pass it to them. Then if you're vaccinated, less chance of you getting it, and even if you get it, you're less likely to pass it. And the amount of virus is important. So let's say I give you one virus, right? Then that virus goes in, and then it has to make copies of itself, and then it has to infect more, make more copies, and in that time frame, your body's defenses can get there. But whereas if I give you 1 million viruses, like a lot, all at once, then it's going to grow very fast, and your body cannot respond fast enough. So it'd be like saying one person trying to break into your house versus 50 people on your house. There's no way the police can come in time. And so that's the same thing. So that's why we want to limit the amount of virus. So if you get infected, you still mask and everything and keep it away from other people. Because I had somebody call me, they said, well, I got it, my wife's got it, our 2 kids don't have it yet, do we need to mask around them? And I said, yes, because you don't want to give them more virus load to deal with in their body. Okay, so always good to isolate them. So back to this picture, okay, very simple picture. So distance, if I keep distance, we keep the virus away, because then I can't breathe it in. Have a mask, so therefore it cuts down on me spreading it out and you sucking it in, and then making sure that your vaccines are up to date. That's your goal at the end. So who should get it? Just 3 questions to think about it. Is how long ago was my last shot? If it's more than 5 months ago, remember that curve? It was coming down. So therefore we need to boost it back up, okay? Number 2 is what's my health? In other words, do I have a lot of medical conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, smoking, lung disease? Then I'm more at risk of getting very sick. So then I need to boost up my factory production of those antibodies. And finally, is there a lot of virus around me? In other words, am I going on a trip, going in a cruise ship where I'm going to be exposed to things? Or am I staying at home and there's no children, in which case my virus count is very low or exposure is very low, so then I don't have to be so urgently getting a vaccine. But let's say I'm working at a hospital, then I need to make sure that I'm boosted all the time because I'm exposed to lots of viruses. So just think about how much virus you're getting exposed to as well. So that's enough of yakking for me. So it's a very simple story. I have to blow out the virus, you have to suck it in. If we interrupt that, you don't get sick. Number 2 is that the vaccine does come down over time, and then what we need to do is have a little boost. In the fall, they're hoping that that double shot that I told you about will be coming. They're hoping that Health Canada will approve it. So right now the studies have been done. Health Canada then reviews it to make sure it's safe and everything else. And then if it's ready for the fall, then the fall booster will be the combination, I think. If it's not ready in the fall, not approved yet, then we will get the regular booster. I think next week you're going to hear that they're going to open up the regular booster to everybody, and that's because our cases are going up. So it's earlier than the fall, and I think that's why they're going to speed things up a little bit. So you may hear about that as we move forward. Anyway, thanks very much, and I'll turn things back over.